first I thought, was that song, they come to kill the rooster? What, is that the same people that did that song?
No.
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 What
is
is
a rooster doing?
Definitely a different service.
That's a whole different thing. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Well, you know.
It was Snuff the Rooster and Snow.
Oh, they come to snuff the rooster.
Doesn't sound like
It still sounds mafia.
I just
It
interpreted
does. I believe they had someone named Alice in Chains once.
Right?
So bad. Forget our jokes.
It was, but it was good.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Oh, that's a whole story in another sermon.
Oh. So come back next week.
And we'll bring Alice.
We are not talking about the rooster next
We will
week.
learn about the rooster.
We will bring Alice.
We won't learn about the
No.
rooster?
But you can go ask Alice.
We can.
All right.
Or Dorothy. Or Dorothy says
My work's cut out for
flee
me.
the tornado.
So as usual, the topic has been really aggressive with me this week. And so this feels really hot, this microphone. Does it sound really?
Mm-mm.
No, maybe it's just me.
It's because the speaker's behind you.
Oh,
It's okay.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I should talk softer.
Please don't.
No.
Just wondering, has anybody, and so has anybody ever had one of those moments? I know this is a redundant question, it's just a ridiculous question. Has anybody ever had one of those moments where you've just thrown your hands up in the air and said, I cannot believe that this is happening again?
Yeah.
No one? Just me?
Just,
You know, and I'm not even gonna, I know that we've all had those moments, so I'm not even gonna tell you what your this again moment is. Because I know that as soon as I said those words, oh no, not this again, you already know. You already know. Someone's face popped up in your head, or a situation became apparent, or maybe a diagnosis, or maybe a family member, or a financial worry. We all have our own kind of this again thing. Sometimes some of us have more than one.
remember, it's me again.
Or we have a me again moment. And I think for me sometimes, and I know in the past, and I know for some people, it's almost like, it's like, why am I going through this again? It's almost like spirit is like really, it's almost like spirit sitting there with like a notebook, giving us, kind of going through lessons, maybe like, okay, Donna got number 7 wrong on that last exam, so we're going to have to let her do that again. But to be honest with you, I do not think that that's how spirit works. And the word recurrence is the word that I want to use today. And I wonder if we've been misunderstanding what recurrence actually is altogether. And I know I've spoken in the past about my experience, a couple years ago in my 30s when I was living out at Egret Farms, an intentional community out in Healdsburg, California. And we had a big 1/4-acre farm garden out there. It wasn't really a farm, it was a 1/4-acre garden. And it was one of my very favorite places to be living in that community. And I know that a 1/4-acre garden can sound kind of, it can sound romantic, I can imagine, the beautiful fruits and vegetables and people walking around with baskets and happy, and maybe a guitar, someone playing with guitar somewhere in the background, and this whole image of what that means. And oftentimes that is exactly what was happening. And it was like that. But then like July showed up. And what happens in July is a lot of weeding. And so like every single day, every morning, the first thing that we would do is head out to that 1/4-acre garden and start pulling weeds. every single morning. And I don't know if anybody, and probably most of us, have stood in a garden sweaty and dirty and dirt under our nails and kind of looking around and thinking, seriously, I just pulled all those weeds. I just pulled all those weeds yesterday. But you know what never crossed my mind in that garden was I never thought, wow, I wonder if I pulled those weeds wrong yesterday. Maybe I didn't pull the weeds correctly. I think maybe I failed at gardening. And maybe are those weeds here because I didn't learn my weeding lesson? It's not ever occurred to me. Because at this farm, we understood something. We understood that weeds were not a sign of failure, that weeds were actually a sign of life, and that we were tending to something that is living. I also learned something really fun, and I like to use this in my everyday, is that a weed isn't, there's nothing wrong with a weed. A weed is just a plant that you don't want in your garden. So a weed isn't a bad thing. I think it's interesting that when it comes to gardens, we're pretty forgiving. But when it comes to us, when it comes to our spiritual lives, we kind of have an expectation maybe of perfection. Like, once we've pulled a weed, no more weeds. That's not true. Because living things require a return. There's a pattern. There's the familiar that keeps reappearing in our lives. But oftentimes our first thought is, I guess I haven't learned the lesson. Mm-hmm. So I've been thinking a lot about life lately, last 2 or 3 years, a lot about life. And I've realized something that was kind of fun, is that at one point in my life, there was a season where everything was the first time, right? I had my first bicycle, I had my first camping trip, I had my first apartment, I had my first love, I had my first heartbreak, I lost my first job. And then eventually what happened is that things started to seem to repeat, right? Almost like a rhyme. It wasn't exactly the same, but it was the same. There wasn't just one relationship, there were many. There was, well, several. There wasn't just one, just one move. There were many, and there were many. But there wasn't just one grief or just one joy. Because life kept bringing me experiences that felt familiar. Not because I had failed, but because that's just what life looks like. That's what living life looks like. Because life's not a straight line. Life is breathing. Life has seasons. It unfolds. It dances. And I like to think of it as a spiral. And that word kept catching my attention this week when I was working on this talk, that spiral.
It is your fault.
It's your fault. Tornado woman.
Yeah.
Spiral.
Like Dorothy or something.
So, and this is entirely about Linda today. So I just want you to know that. So I learned about, I started thinking about spirals, and some of you are probably familiar with something called the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes.
Oh, good. We don't have to talk about it. My wife knows about the Fibonacci sequence because she's a Tool fan. And here's what's real. If you start talking to Tool fans, eventually you're going to talk about the Fibonacci sequence. Talk to her after the meeting. I finally started paying attention to the Fibonacci sequence. And so I'm going to explain it for those that don't know. And I'm going to do it terribly, so just hang in there. So the Fibonacci sequence is actually quite simple. And it's a mathematical equation, starting with 0. and then there is 1, and then there is 1, and then there is 2, and then there's 3, 5, 8, 13. So that's the sequence. The sequence is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and on into infinity. And what I love about this, what I really love about this is that each new number contains the 2 numbers before it. That's how that equation works. That nothing is discarded. Everything contributes. Every new thing carries, every new number carries with it what came before it. And I see this in my own life, right? Every experience seems to inform the next recurrence of it. And I love that. There's nothing discarded, not our joy, not our mistakes, not our wisdom. Everything is contributing to who we are becoming. And isn't it fascinating that nature really likes this pattern? It's its favorite shape, I'm going to say. Fern fronds, unfurling. I was really afraid I was going to mess up that line. I did good. Fern fronds, unfurling. Right? Pine cones. You can see it in the swirl of pine cones. Where are my pine cones? Seashells. Sunflowers. Tornadoes.
In our own bodies.
Galaxies. Snails.
In our own bodies.
And in our own bodies. Our heart is that spiral. So creation is not super interested in straight lines. It's not completely disinterested, but because creation is always expanding. It's always expanding, it's always growing, and it does it through spirals. And so I'm wondering if that's also how our consciousness expands through that spiral. So I did go to school, and in school we talked about a Greek philosopher named Heraclitus. And Heraclitus's works, there is no, continuous volumes of work. All of his work was found in fragments of parchments and on stone. And so things kind of are a little tricky. But what he is most famous for his most famous quote is that, and this is a paraphrase, so don't come down on me, all you philosophers. But his most famous quote is that you can never step into the same river twice. Mm-hmm. And we know why, right? Because the river is always moving. The water is always flowing. Life is always going. It's always changing. And also, I am not the same person. The person who stepped into the river yesterday or 5 minutes ago is not the person who is stepping into it now or will step into it in the future. So one can never step into the same river twice. Same river, same person, different experience. I'm different. I've had another night's sleep. I've had another experience. I've had another joy. I've had another sadness. Everything is changing, literally, moment to moment. And sometimes I think we spend an awful lot of our energy trying to hold things still. Because we, as humans, we like predictability. Predictability means that I know that a lion isn't going to jump out and eat me right now because I know what this situation is. So we like predictability. We like knowing what's next. We like our calendars. We carry them with us now. We like our routines. We like our favorite coffee mug. We like it served a certain way. We like that. tells us that the world is dependable. But spirit seems to be interested in something else. I think spirit is more interested in aliveness, more interested in aliveness than predictability. And anything that's alive changes. Anything that's alive grows. It requires our participation. Life does. And I think that this is why I don't particularly resonate with the idea that Earth is some kind of graduate school for souls. And I know that that works for a lot of people. I know that that's a common and a very functional way for some people to think about life. And that's wonderful, but it doesn't fit for me. And the reason it doesn't fit for me is because sometimes in spiritual communities, we can unintentionally make life sound like one long series of exams, right? If this happened, you must not have learned your lesson the last time. Oh, you're going through a difficult challenge? What's the lesson in it for you? And so before long, we can start carrying around this kind of subtle spiritual shame, right? Like, apparently I'm not getting it. Maybe I'm not smart enough to understand. That's why I have to keep doing things over and over again, because there's something wrong with me. And so that's why that doesn't work for me. And also, I just don't think spirit is keeping score. I just don't think God is up there handing out pop quizzes to all of us, right? I don't believe that love is saying, well, Donna, you only got 92% of that last exam, so we're going to have to do that one again, because that doesn't sound like infinite love expressing to me. That sounds like high school.
Yeah.
Right? So Science of Mind offers us something that's much more liberating. I know that our favorite Ernest Holmes quote here at Emerald Valley Center for Spiritual Living is that life is a mirror and will reflect back to us what we think into it. And what I want to point out about that today is that Ernest isn't telling us, it's more interesting to think about what Ernest isn't saying in that sentence, in that quote, right? What is Ernest not saying in that quote? He's not saying that life is punishing us. And he's not saying that life is rewarding us. He is saying that life is reflecting to us. Life reflects. And reflection isn't punishment. Reflection is revelation. The mirror simply shows us what is, shows us the truth. I just realized I was facing one way and I'm missing my whole other side of the room. Hi. Nice to see you.
Hold up a mirror?
Yeah. I'm going to give a mirror. And the beautiful part of that is that if consciousness changes, then the reflection changes. Not because God's changed, not because spirit changed, but because we have changed. So a couple weeks ago, personal story, a couple weeks ago, I sat before my ordination panel. And after years of classes and reading books that I was really interested in and writing reports and doing internships and practicums and checking boxes and going to meetings, finally arrived at the ordination panel. Experienced ministers asking me deep and thoughtful questions about who I am, about my ethics, about pastoral care, about what it means to me to be a minister. And here's what surprised me about this whole panel thing is, this wasn't my first interview. It wasn't my first time sitting in front of people evaluating whether I qualify or if I was ready for something. Because I've had job interviews. I've had performance reviews. I've sat on other panels before for different reasons. And those circumstances were the same. I'm in a panel interview, but I wasn't. So as I was sitting there waiting for this panel to begin, I noticed something, that I wasn't anxious. I wasn't mentally rehearsing answers. I wasn't trying to convince somebody that I belonged. Instead, what I found myself was I was looking forward to this conversation. What I was recognizing was that I'm going to be showing up, as I always do, as God, as Donna, talking to God as these panelists. What a beautiful experience. How amazing to just be sitting there in that. And what I thought was, well, this is a whole new experience. But the panel hadn't changed. I had changed. And the questions weren't easier, but my relationship to those questions had changed. So life really does feel like a spiral. And if it does spiral, if spirit is continually expressing itself in new ways, then what exactly changes? Because sometimes the circumstances don't, right? Sometimes the relationship is still difficult. Sometimes the diagnosis doesn't disappear. Sometimes the bills keep showing up and need to be paid. Sometimes grief is still grief, and sometimes work is still hard. And I came across this idea that I've been sitting with all week. So some of you may be familiar with a teacher named Bashar. Am I saying that? Bashar. So Bashar is a channeled entity. It's a channeled intelligence. And whether or not you agree with everything that he teaches or not, it's not really the point. But this one idea, Bashar, really caught my attention. He says, everything outside of you is neutral until you assign it meaning. I don't know that if neutral is exactly the word that I would choose, because life certainly contains real joy and real suffering. But I do think that he's pointing toward something that's profoundly true. The meaning we assign to an experience changes the experience itself. We think about it. Rain to a farmer is a blessing. If you're getting married outside and it starts to rain, not so much. Same rain, different experience. Nothing outside us has changed, but consciousness changes. So what if spirit isn't changing circumstances in our lives? What if spirit is continually inviting us to assign new meaning to familiar circumstances? And maybe that's what spiraling upward looks like. That the event may look familiar, but the consciousness that we bring to it has expanded. That one realization has changed the way that I've begun looking at my own life. So instead of asking, why is this happening again, I'm learning to ask, who's meeting this moment? Who am I showing up as now? Not what did I did wrong, but who am I becoming? Because those are two very different questions. One comes from fear, and one comes from freedom. Thomas Troward wrote, principle is not bound by precedent, and I love that. What freedom that is. Principle is not bound by precedent, and neither are we. Just because something happened yesterday doesn't mean that today is predetermined. Spirit is creating right now. Life is unfolding right now. Love is expressing itself right now. Every single moment is new. Every single breath is new. Every single opportunity is new. Life is continually creating something fresh through familiar forms. spiraling. So I've watched The Princess Bride like a lot, like probably 7 times. I don't know. Is anyone else Princess Bride?
Yeah,
Yes.
probably more than that.
Oh, you guys watch The Princess Bride. You are the princess? And I didn't watch it the second time
yes.
because I thought I missed something the first time. I didn't watch it the third time because I thought, oh, I didn't get the lesson in that the third time that I watched it, right? I revisited it. I watched it again because I love it.
Yeah.
I reread books. I revisit the same beaches. I listen to favorite songs over and over again. And when I go to taco board, y'all, I kind of get the same taco every time. Right? All right. So not every recurrence is remediation. Not everything that happens to us again is because we missed something the first time. Sometimes we repeat things, sometimes happen again because they bring us joy. Because there's love in it, there's light in it. And every time I've watched The Princess Bride, I've always seen something different. And y'all, the movie is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It is the exact same movie the 7th time as it was the first time, and the 4th time, and the 8th time when I go watch it again. So the movie hasn't changed. I've changed.
Right.
The observer has changed. I've changed. And maybe that's what it means to dance in the light. When we talk about dancing in the light, we're talking about dancing in the light of consciousness, right? So light doesn't erase a path. Light reveals a path. It shows us the next curve. The light reminds us that we don't walk that path or around those curves as the same person. So every prayer, every meditation, every act of forgiveness, every moment of courage, and every heartbreak survived, every joy celebrated, is part of that dance in the light of consciousness. And nothing is wasted. Everything contributes to the next experience. So this week, don't be surprised when something shows up that you've done before. And before you throw your hands up in the air and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. This again, not this again. Here we go again. Before that happens, I'm going to invite you to just take a moment. Take a breath. That space between stimulus and response. Let it grow. Let it grow. And smile. Not because it's easy, but because you remember this isn't the same thing as it was before, because you are not the same person that you were before. Today is brand new, and it's meeting you brand new. So I'd like to leave now with the words of T.S. Eliot. Just adore. See, also didn't like punctuation. We shall not cease from exploration. And in the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. So spiral on, y'all.
First, let me pass it.